Oh fuck, you're back. Like for real. Kinda didn't expect y'all to come back at this point. But, hey, I'll take what I can fucking get, and, we'll just move on with it, eh? After all, it's been, yeah, it's been a while. Tell you what, how about we get back into things by going over everything that's happened so far? Sound good? Well, it doesn't really matter, because I can't hear you anyway. So, sit down and grab some popcorn, because I'm about to tell you all about the weird-ass shit that you've done in the past year. And let me tell you, there's plenty to go over. So, like all cliché fantasy stories, ours begins in a tavern. Very original, I know. It's all fine and well and a nice evening when BAM! Some shady guys walk in through the door and start pressing the barkeeper for cash. Now, some people in the tavern seem to be clearly bothered by this. And before you know it, combat ensues. And it is right after every last fuck has been beaten into submission that we meet our group of protagonists. There's Naren, a seasoned dwarf soldier whose entire family is dead due to the horrors of war. Fetch, a noble human who made a pact with a greater being to spite her parents. Seven Thundercloud of the Mountain Tree, or Thunder for short, a Tabapsy lusting for all the wrong things. Aberwin, a human wizard, promptly ignoring the fight in the tavern, but somehow ended up joining with the others anyway. And Mace, who's a human. Just a human. So, after this group of misfits meet, they end up going to the neighboring town, where the first thing they do is sign up at the local adventurers guild. Because that was the original pitch for the story, and things just kinda escalated from that point on. Like when the party stumbled into the church and immediately began spitting profanity into the sacred halls, managed by a totally legit and not at all shady priestess. Anyway, time passes and our group does a few quests for the guild they're now a part of. The first of which results in them killing some giant spiders, an ogre, and then some dead giant spiders. Oh yeah, also there were sheep. Mace hugged the sheep. You may not think this is important, but pay attention to it now. It's gonna become relevant at some point in the future. It's also at this point the party explores the local town and comes across most of the town's shopkeepers. A totally original set of characters consisting of a moody blacksmith, that one guy from Shovel Knight, a Xenoblade Chronicles reject, and a little girl from WarioWare featuring Dante from the Devil May Cry series and his gay husband. Oh yeah, there was also this thing about Thunder joining a bounty hunter guild by finding and capturing a criminal and watching him get executed by a guy who totally isn't connected to those fucks they beat up in the tavern. So that was pretty neat. The party then completes a more simple quest on oh wait, what's this? Congratulations! Your contributions to this town and guild have been recognized by the leader of the guild, and he's inviting you to join him and the mayor for dinner. After a brief shopping montage and some good food, the party is now on good terms with the local higher-ups. Yay! And then everyone gets asked to investigate this spooky burnt down mansion further north, and when they do so, they find this little girl locked in the basement. She doesn't seem to remember anything other than that she's supposed to wait for her father and that there's a force field surrounding the house preventing her from leaving. Several plans for solving this issue are considered, but in the end, people agree that trying to find her father seems to just be the best idea. A bit of searching later, the party finds the old man and brings him back to the basement, where the girl quickly snaps his neck. Yeah, so it turns out the girl was actually a killer robot built by the guy, but he was an asshole, and so she decided to burn down his house. And his wife and daughter too. Whoops. After some heavy moral debating, the party eventually decides to kill the robot. And they actually succeed. But not before it manages to kill Fetch. And so, the first member of this party dies a tragic death. Oop, never mind, she's fine. Why is she fine? Because right before her life faded away, she encountered a tall, handsome, and mysterious, all-powerful being that decided to bring her back to life. Well, she also did have to sign a contract that forces her to do everything that being felt like. The party is of course kinda split on this whole coming back to life thing, and so both Naren and Mace decide to leave the party for a bit to train on a mountain or something. The other party members on the other hand decide to spend the time kinda differently. Fetch decides to hang out with the mayor a bit, and eventually strikes a deal with her to find an old family heirloom that was stolen in return for a house. Also, she starts like an apprenticeship with like the owner of the magic item shop, but I forgot to write that in the script here. Thunder, on the other hand, finds the town's succubus brothel after tailing that one Jack from the other night, and after her investigation doesn't bring much fruit, decides to use the place for its intended purpose. Abavin, meanwhile, does a bit of item trading and eventually gets his hands on a pretty cool, definitely not cursed ring. Also, everyone does research on the mayor's heirloom with some help from this one nerd girl who spends all her time in the library for some reason and decide to head to the capital. But before they take off, Fetch gets a letter from the mayor that she's supposed to hand over to the king. You know, since they're headed for the capital anyway and plot convenience is a thing. Once they arrive, everyone just sort of splits up and does their own thing for a bit. Abavin scams some people out of money with the help of Thunder. Thunder decides to invade another bard's turf and start a bard battle. Fetch investigates the Academy archive for some info, and Mace decides to pick a fight with the captain of the Royal Guard. Oh yeah, also he reveals during that fight that he is part angel, so that's pretty cool. One royal ass-kicking later, Fetch and Naren have an audience with the Crown Princess, who, whoa, big reveal, actually is the captain of the Royal Guard. They are then taken to the king, but not before Fetch manages to quickly peek at the letter they're supposed to hand over. Turns out, apparently those undead spiders from way back at the beginning are a pretty big deal. Who would have thought? Anyway, as they're taken to see the king, Naren notices that one of the Royal Guards working here is actually his nephew. Yeah, remember when I said his entire family was dead? That was a fucking lie. Turns out one of them actually survived. Anyway, they hand over the letter and head to find the house of the local academy headmaster. Why? Well, remember that info Fetch looked up? Turns out a person used to live there who might have known where the mayor's heirloom could be. Only problem is that he is dead, but hey, maybe he left some kind of clue, who knows. When they get there, they're greeted by a maid and told to go to the academy and talk with the headmaster directly since he isn't home at the moment. Once they get to meet him, however, it turns out he doesn't actually have a maid. Oh no. So of course they run back, beat her up, torture her for a bit, and find out that she works for a pretty large crime syndicate, with those criminals from way back at the beginning being part of a different branch of that syndicate. Also, they make a hole in the kitchen floor and find a secret passage that leads to the ghost of the old guy who might be able to help them find the heirloom. He helps them look through his pile of notes, and eventually they find out the heirloom was stolen here in the capital by some guy who was the brother of some great pirate queen or something. With this useful information in mind, they hand over the maid to the guards and party for a while before eventually returning home. Once they get back, they go back to questing and end up investigating an old tomb of some great wizard who rigged almost everything within her tomb to explode. Oh yeah, also, Fetch is getting really pissy because her contract tells her to make sure that Abavin dies, and she's a little bitch who can't follow instructions. Anyway, so the group clears the tomb, fights a big flying person at the end, and Abavin dies and is then brought back to life by his definitely not cursed ring. Plus, he gains like a pretty cool explosion staff from the secret chamber in the tomb, so that's nice for him, I guess. Once they get back, Mace, who's been feeling kinda lost this entire time, does what any sane person would do in that situation and asks the church for guidance. And being the totally legit and not at all shady priestess that she is, she directs him further to someone who might be able to help him out. And as always, you know a person is 100% trustworthy if they're wearing a creepy mask. Kinda concerned that the party member just ran off, Fonda and Naren decide to investigate the church and ask the totally legit and not at all shady priestess if she knows where Mace is. And she says no. You know, like a liar. So, suspicious as ever, Fonda decides to do what any sane person would do in that situation and tries to read the priestess's mind, and is shocked to find nothing there other than enough nightmare fuel to keep any sane person outside of a church for years to come. But they end up finding Mace anyway. Right after he joined the cult and received an ominous brand on his hand, of course. So after that all transpired, the party decides to hang around town a bit more, and eventually finds out that the owner of the local scrap shop has not just gotten his hands on the parts of the robot girl they fought a while back, but also decided to rebuild her. But it's okay, because she has amnesia and can't remember ever meeting the party, or, you know, getting killed by them. She also can't really do anything because Abavin decided to literally steal her heart when they killed her, so she's currently unable to leave the scrap shop. Oh well, she was unable to leave the scrap shop until Abavin literally sells them her heart back for a hefty sum of gold, proving once again that the most powerful force in the entire world is just good old-fashioned capitalism. Additionally, since Fonda notices how Mace seems a bit down, she drags him to that succubus brothel that was mentioned earlier, and lets him watch her do the horizontal tango, to which Mace immediately tries to burn his eyes out. Since he successfully blinds himself on one eye, the party decides that the best course of action would be to make a deal with Fetch's Feylord patron. Yes, Fetch has a Feylord patron, that was kinda hinted that way at the beginning and I just didn't bother mentioning it further. To restore his eye in return for a favor of equal value. So that is exactly what they do. Hold on, pause the plot, it's time for the obligatory tournament arc! That's right, the party decides to sign up for a fighting tournament and is confirmed to participate in it at this point in time. And Mace is super scared due to one of the other teams participating consisting of some old classmates of his that he really doesn't seem to be on good terms with. The opening celebration of the tournament, hosted at the mayor's estate, is not only home to some character cameos that I am probably the only person who cares about, a sick dance-off between Fetch and Thunder, and the revelation that the mayor has secretly been working with the leader of the gang responsible for those criminals from way back at the beginning this entire time. Though in her defense, it seems like this is less of a win-win kind of situation and more a case of making a bad decision for a good reason that just kinda spiraled out of control. Also, it turns out that that one guy Thunder was tailing a while back is the second in command of the crime boss the mayor is forced to work with, and that he seems pretty eager on overthrowing his boss with the party's help. Oh yeah, and they find out that the gang's main base of operation is right below that brothel Thunder likes to visit. So anyway, the party fights May's old classmates, leading to him revealing to everyone present that he is indeed part angel, which definitely is not going to come back and bite him in the ass later. Whoop, what's that? We haven't had a spontaneous interruption in a while? Well, don't you worry, because that Jack dude from the other night is here to take Thunder into questioning by his boss. Apparently, a literal cat burglar stole from him, and seeing as Thunder was the only cat person anyone seemed to know, it is now her job to get back what was stolen. You know, because the alternative is death. There really isn't much of an option here. Oh yeah, also the king, who's here because the royal family is watching all of the tournament fights, suddenly seems really interested in Mace and asks him over for a one-on-one talk. Gee, I wonder if this has anything to do with all the angel stuff. The resulting conversation can be summed up something like this. Yada yada, ancient evil in the world about to return. Yada yada, you are probably our main weapon in the fight against it. Yada yada. Yeah, that's cool and all, but check out the sweet brand I got in my hand. Oh, let me have had looked at it. Oh no. What's up? We have nothing more to discuss. Listen, old man, I don't like people keeping secrets from me, and I'll hunt you down and find out what you're hiding from me. This, of course, results in the king calling the royal guards to arrest Mace for threatening him, and Mace teleports out using his new mentor figure. Not sure where he should go, Mace decides to leave town and hide with the flock of sheep from earlier, waiting there for his party to inevitably find him. See, you didn't expect that to be relevant, but I told you it would be. The party hears about the situation Mace is in when they're interrogated by the crown princess / captain of the royal guard and decide to check things out. The following investigation ends with the house of Mace's new mentor exploding, the totally legit and not at all shady priestess vanishing without a trace once the church gets raided by the guards, Thunder getting arrested for forcefully trying to talk to the king, and Mace fleeing the country after saying goodbye to his party members, but not before Abervin manages to remove the brand from Mace's hand, effectively breaking his ties to whatever evil cult he was previously a part of. Nat 20 might do that for you. A few days pass and Thunder is eventually trialed and shipped off to the capital to be imprisoned there. Now down 2 party members, the remaining people sit around in their usual choice of inn and contemplate what to do now. Hey, knock knock. Who's there? It's Warden! He's a minotaur hippie that is looking for some people that match Fetch's and Aaron's description. Yeah, so apparently he used to guard some kind of secret grove close to the town, and the force field around it was destroyed by some Phalloid champion. And, well, since Fetch is a Phalloid champion, obviously, that means she has to know something about who's responsible. Just as they're about to leave, however, they run into Yuri, a borderline alcoholic religious person that got kicked out of her team from the fighting tournament and decides to also team up with the party, because she has no place to go and the party has a good connection to the bartender, so, you know. So everyone goes out to Warden's Grove, and once they reach the grove, they fight a really ugly goat monster that turns into a regular goat after it is killed. Sometime later, Abervent's definitely not cursed ring gets identified by the lead magicist after Fetch asked her earlier to check it out if she had the time. Turns out, it's actually super cursed, and will slowly turn Abervent undead in exchange for letting him cheat death more easily. This is actually a very big problem, because necromancy is a huge no-no in this kingdom, so they try to look for a solution before Abervent quickly says, "Nah fam, why would I give up on immortality? Dying fucking sucks." And to make things even better, the party receives a severed cat head from the one gang that seems pretty mad Thunder hasn't found the stolen property yet. So the group finally decides to team up with the gang leader second in command and slowly starts to plan their coup. In the middle of all this drama, Naren and Yuri both get ready for their next round of the tournament fight and encounter a mysterious silhouetted figure that seems to use magic to participate in the tournament while keeping their identity a secret. Gee, I wonder who that person could possibly be. And speaking of the next round of the tournament, it turns out that they'll be fighting that one robot girl and the person who rebuilt her. And it also turns out that she doesn't actually have amnesia, but just faked it. What a twist, right? But hey, they barely managed to beat the two of them, and she doesn't instantly kill them, so that's good, right? Meanwhile, Fetch and Warden find out that the barrier around his grove was destroyed by another Fate champion. Except that this one is evil. And he just so happens to also be a participant in the tournament. How convenient. So, they do the logical thing of ambushing him after a match alongside his friends when they're both weakened, and when they fail to catch him, decide to have his friends eaten alive by direwolves. Okay, that last part was Warden's idea, but still. This seems to be the last thing that pushes Fetch over the edge, as the guilt of more or less being responsible for Abaven getting cursed and getting high on immortality finally gets to her. So, she goes to Warden's Grove and, with his help, takes her own life to make sure that she no longer poses as a threat to her friends. This of course leaves not just the party, but a lot of other people heartbroken, and everyone goes on to deal with their grief in their own way. In the middle of it all, the party meets the other Fate champion, who goes on to fight Warden due to him, murdering his friend, and almost kills him in the process. Out of respect for Fetch, however, he decides to barely leave Warden alive, saying that he will finish the job if the Minotaur doesn't succumb to his wounds. Which of course, he doesn't. Once they get back to town, the party goes to knock knock. Who's there? Interplanar Rift. What? An interplanar rift opens in the middle of town and drops out a single person. That's Vanya. She's been stuck in the elemental plane for almost 2 millennia and decides to join the party because she has literally nothing better to do. Also, while we're at it, Yuri decides to snitch on Warden and tells the town guard he's responsible for murdering the innocent friend of the other Fate champion. So, naturally, when the town guards come to arrest him, Warden does what any sane person would do in this situation. He tries to see how many guards he can take out before he inevitably succumbs to police brutality. It's 0, by the way. He didn't take down anyone. Also, Vanya suddenly meets the same tall, handsome, and mysterious all-powerful being that fetched it, and he drops a major truth bomb on her. Apparently, some people are being controlled by some other all-powerful beings that make all their decisions for them. Fetch was controlled by such a person when she signed the contract with me, the all-powerful being. And since Vanya is being controlled by the same person as Fetch, that means Vanya is technically bound by the same contract as Fetch. Don't look at me like that, I don't make the rules. Oh wait, I do. Shit. Anyway, shortly after Warden is carried off to prison, the party runs into an old walking suit of armor that seems to be worn by an old robot of some kind. The robot is named XIV, or technically 14, and seems to have been partially made by dwarves, which is probably why it takes a strong interest in Naren. The party then meets up with that Jack dude again and makes the final preparations for the coup that is gonna take place the next evening. A plan which of course will result in the party pretending to get captured. After the planning, Naren is chosen to represent the party in the next round of the tournament, and goes to face the champion of the Trinity. Who's the champion of the Trinity? Well, he's the guy that kicked Yura out from his team, and seems pretty convinced that he was chosen by the gods themselves, and he has a surprising amount of strength to back it up. Oh, and his name is Chadwick, so he's a bit of a dick. So, Naren of course walks into this fight and then proceeds to absolutely kick the crap out of Chadwick for a total span of 18 seconds. With this totally dominating victory under their belt, the party finally decides to move on and get ready for the fight against the leader of the local crime syndicate. The gang leader whose machinations they've come across since the very beginning. The guy who's always been in the background and is now finally about to get the justice he deserves. And that's where the story's at right now. But don't be fooled, the story is far from over. And also, this is far from everything that happened. Like, seriously, if I hadn't cut out all the filler content, like that one time the party fought a blink blob from space, this recap would be 10 times as long as it is now. And truly, nobody has time for that. Except for me, apparently. So now you know pretty much all the important things that happened throughout the last year of the campaign. You're welcome.